Alright, Rich Van Tassel back with you here Saturday, October 8th, 2016, continuing on with our Week 5 game picks. Next up, we got a Beltway edition. The Washington Redskins at 2-2 are traveling to Baltimore to play the 3-1 Ravens. Not much of a travel there at all for the Washington Redskins. Their injuries first for the visiting Washington Redskins. Shua Cravens, Deshaun Phillips, a safety and a cornerback, and Josh Doxson, a wide receiver, are all out. Ryan Kerrigan, the linebacker pass rusher, and Sean Lavau, a guard, are questionable. For the Baltimore Ravens, Kenneth Dixon, running back, Devin Hester, wide receiver, Sheldon Price, cornerback, are questionable. Max Williams, a tight end, is on injury reserve. Ronnie Staley, the offensive tackle, is doubtful. Washington, after that 0-2 start, have come back with 2 wins against the Giants and the Cleveland Browns to even the record at 2-2. The Baltimore Ravens, after getting off to a 3-0 start, they lost a tough one to the Oakland Raiders last week by 1 point. Baltimore has not really stretched their legs, so to speak. I still think there's much more that this team is capable of, and they've been able to get by thus far early in the season. But let's see what this team can really do when they start to truly develop and get out and really execute the game plan to the level I think they're capable of. I don't think they've done that yet, especially that Cleveland game. If you remember, they got out, or got behind, that is, to an early deficit in that game. So there's certainly talent here for this Ravens team. I was expecting a lot from them this season, but still has not yet all come together for them. Let's see if Washington can be that team that the Baltimore Ravens could do that against. Washington is not defending the run very well, so look for Joe Flacco to rely on Terrence West to get the running game going, because West has run the ball fairly well this season, over 200 yards through the first 4 games, and as discussed, Washington is really struggling to defend the run. So if they can do that, keep Joe Flacco from having to throw the ball a lot. His completion percentage is not terrible. However, he does have 4 interceptions to only 4 touchdowns. So that's something that you'd have to know. If Ryan Kerrigan can't go, that means Joe Flacco will certainly have more time in the passing game because they're not getting pressure on him. Kirk Cousins has responded nicely. He only has 51 incompletions. Completed 100 passes, so basically 100 out of 150. That's 10 out of 15. That's 2/3. Really not bad at all. He does have 4 interceptions, but he has really picked up his game, and Matt Jones, for them, is running the ball very well. In this one, 2 teams that really haven't come together all the way around yet, I would expect the Ravens to get the win because I think that they can run the ball much better, not because their running game is necessarily better than the Washington Redskins, but their run defense is better than the Washington Redskins. I like Baltimore to win another tough game, as they usually do. I like them to come out with a victory in the area of 24-20 in this one. Okay, next up, the Houston Texans at 3-1, traveling to Minnesota to play the Vikings, who are 4-0 and really coming along. The injuries for the visiting Houston Texans: Devin Still, defensive tackle, is on injury reserve. Steven Anderson, tight end, is out. Kareem Jackson, cornerback, questionable. And Dwayne Brown, an offensive tackle, is also questionable. For the Minnesota Vikings, Stephon Diggs, wide receiver, doubtful. Andre Smith, offensive tackle, and Sharif Floyd, defensive tackle, are out. And Rhett Ellison, the tight end, is doubtful. Okay, so Houston, their offense still hasn't come along that well. They got Brock Osweiler in there to solidify the quarterback position, but he has already had 56 incompletions on less than 150 passes, 5 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, so he's not really solving it, and maybe the Denver team he was playing with last season really inflated the type of game that he has. Meanwhile, on the other end, Sam Bradford has been efficient, has not thrown any interceptions, does not yet have 30 incomplete passes, yet he has only played 3 games to the 4 that Brock Osweiler has played, but less than 100 passes for Sam Bradford thrown, more than 66 completions. Jerick McKinnon is the interesting factor I see in this game. A guy, I discussed this when I was watching the Giants game on Monday night for the Minnesota Vikings. He really looks quick. He looks very fluid running the ball. So I'm not saying he is Adrian Peterson, but he's a guy who, against a good quality Houston front seven, even without Devin Still and J.J. Watt, is a guy who I think can make more things happen than Adrian Peterson. Peterson's kind of a bull in a china shop. He's looking to, just smash and hit everything that's in front of him. McKinnon is a guy who I think can make some things happen, at least enough for Minnesota to open up the passing game. With that being said, I think Houston is going to be able to go in there and get the win over the Minnesota Vikings, because I don't see the Vikings going 5-0, and I really expect that Osweiler's going to pick it up at some point. Even with Minnesota's defense, Sharif Floyd is not playing, so he's not going to have to worry about pressure up the middle necessarily. And I think if they can establish the running game with Lamar Miller, who is under 4 yards per carry, but does have over 350 yards this season, which is good, through 4 games, that they'll be able to do enough, and I expect them to get DeAndre Hopkins involved in this game. I like Houston to come out with the victory, 30-21 over the Minnesota Vikings, handing the Vikings their first loss of the season. Another interesting game, probably the most intriguing game of the week, is the Atlanta Falcons at 3-1 traveling to Denver to play the Broncos, who are 4-0. The Falcons are 2-0 on the road. Broncos are 2-0 at home. Injuries for the visiting Atlanta Falcons. Sean Witherspoon is on injury reserve. Devondre Campbell, linebacker. Deion Jones, linebacker, are out. So some injuries to the linebacking core of the Atlanta Falcons. For the Denver Broncos, Shiloh Keo, Trevor Siemian, a safety and a quarterback, are both listed as questionable, as well as Virgil Green, the tight end. The outs are Kayvon Webster, cornerback, and DeMarcus Ware, the linebacker. Now, we've seen the Atlanta Falcons offense is really torching teams thus far, and of course the Denver Broncos defense, I would have to say without question, is the best in football right now. So something's going to have to give in this game in more ways than one. You look at a team in Atlanta that's unbeaten on the road, and a team in Denver that is unbeaten at home. So a lot of things are going to have to happen in this one. Can Aqib Talib slow Julio Jones down, who had a big game last week against the Carolina Panthers? That's going to be very interesting to see. How much help are they going to have to give him? But the biggest help you can give your secondary when you have a big-time receiver is to make the quarterback uncomfortable, get pressure on him, and not allow him time for a guy like Julio Jones to go downfield. Talib is a very good cornerback, but the way Julio Jones is playing, you certainly can't leave him one-on-one, and the more pressure you get, or at least leave him one-on-one all game, and the more pressure you get, it, like any other game, is much more beneficial to you. So, will Denver lose its first game? I don't see it. I think this is a difficult matchup, and the type of matchup that you would need to beat a potent offensive team like the Atlanta Falcons. Look for Von Miller to get sacks, get pressure, even without DeMarcus Ware. Shane Ray has certainly picked it up, and the secondary is nowhere near terrible where they're going to be getting sliced up like the Carolina Panthers did against Julio Jones. And certainly after a guy drops 300 yards in a game through the air, receiving that is, you've got to be wary of that, and I'm sure that Denver has been watching game film all week. If Trevor Siemian does not go, he is questionable. I expect questionables to go. Then I could see a problem for Denver in this game. But assuming Siemian plays, I like the Denver Broncos to come out with a victory, 30-27. The Cincinnati Bengals at 2-2 are traveling to Dallas to play the 3-1 Cowboys. Injuries first for the visiting Cincinnati Bengals. Jake Fisher, offensive tackle, Clint Boling, guard, and Rex Burkhead, running back, are all questionables. Tyler Eifert, the tight end, is out. James Wright, wide receiver, is doubtful. For the Cowboys, all listed as questionables. Andrew Gatchkar, linebacker. Chaz Green, offensive lineman. Mark Nanchoa, linebacker. Orlando Scandrick, cornerback. And Tyron Smith, offensive tackle. Not seeing anything on Des Bryant yet again. DeMarcus Lawrence, of course, is activated from his suspension. I have to immediately look at the offensive line injuries. Tyron Smith, if he can't go, has missed the last 2 games at tackle. This is for the Cowboys, and Chaz Green, questionable, his backup. So, going against a very potent Cincinnati Bengals defensive front seven, and especially defensive line, it's going to certainly be difficult for the Cowboys at full strength. Without either of those two guys, it will be even more difficult for the Cowboys. And if Dez Bryant can't go, again, I'm not sure why I can't seem to get this information on. I'm expecting that he will be playing in this game. We'll see what happens, though. But if Dez Bryant can't go, Dak Prescott is really going to be in trouble in this game because Ezekiel Elliott, his best friend running the ball, is going to be shut down for the most part in this game, and he's not going to get anywhere near the big yards, at least I wouldn't expect, as he's been doing the last couple of weeks. Cincinnati is good enough against any offensive line with their own defensive line that they don't have to commit that many to stop the run to begin with. If Dez Bryant is out, then Cincinnati can really load up that box, and their secondary isn't bad to begin with. So you're looking at a team that could get away with not bringing the eighth man in the box, maybe even dropping an extra guy in the coverage and still being able to handle the run. Without Dez Bryant, they can add more guys committed to stopping the run to that vaulted defensive line. I would expect Dak Prescott is going to get his first turnover, or his first interception at least, in this game. A.J. Green going to be a difficult matchup for the Cowboys, as he is a difficult matchup for everyone. Let's see how improved Morris Claiborne is coming into the season. But again, Morris Claiborne only 5'11 of the 6'4 A.J. Green. You're going to have to double team A.J. Green, and let's see what the other receivers for the Cincinnati Bengals will do. I like the Bengals to get the win in this game because of the reasons we discussed. I think Dallas is going to struggle to run the ball, and it's going to force a lot on Dak Prescott with the potential of Dez Bryant not being able to play. It's going to be too much for the Cowboys to overcome, and I like the Cincinnati Bengals to come away with the victory, 28-17. All right, so that is part 2 of the game picks. We will be back in a little bit to continue on with part 3. Thank you so much.